What's up, ladies and gentlemen? In this video, I want to talk about a video that recently went viral for me. It was a video that talked about a lease deal on a GMC Sierra 1500. Now, the video definitely got an overwhelming response, but as I was reading through the comments, I realized a couple of things. The first thing that I realized was that people were complaining about the down payment that was required for the lease. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can make any lease virtually a zero down lease. The second thing that people were talking about and didn't fully understand was the mileage. So this particular lease allowed for 10,000 miles a year, and most people said that 10,000 miles a year just simply wasn't enough, and they just wrote off the deal as a bad deal due to mileage restrictions. And the third thing that people really commented on was that leasing is just like renting. Well, leasing is similar to renting, but if your lease has a lease buyout option, which most leases do, leasing isn't like renting, and I will cover that as well in this video. So if you want to learn about those three things, how a down payment works on a lease, how mileage works on a lease, and how lease buyouts work on a lease, watch this video until the end. And give this video a big thumbs up or like it, and please be sure to follow or subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Let's go ahead and jump into the computer. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, here is the lease deal that I was referring to. It's a 2023 GMC Sierra 1500 short crew cab, 4-wheel drive with a turbo high output engine. Now, the advertised lease deal is for $479 a month for 36 months, and it requires $5,379 due at signing after all offers. And lastly, it's a 36-month lease that allows for 30,000 miles a year, so 10,000 miles a year. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is why I think this particular lease deal is a good lease deal, and for that, I'm going to bust out the calculator, and what we're going to do is take the down payment of $5,379 and divide it by 36 months. I get $149.41, and I'll add the monthly payment to that number, $479, and then I'll multiply this number by 1.1 to account for 10% sales tax here in the state of Washington, because here in the state of Washington you get taxed on the monthly payment, not on the full price of the vehicle. And when I do that, I get $691.25. And when I divide this number by the MSRP, which is $58,195, as you can see down here, my mouse cursor. So I'll divide that by $58,195, and I get 1.18 or 1.19%. Now, as a rule of thumb, anytime a lease is under 1.5%, it's a good deal. If it's under 1.25%, it's a great deal when you compare it to comparable monthly payments if you were to finance this car. And if it's under 1%, that's just an amazing lease deal. Now, the first thing that I want to explain is that this is just a rule of thumb. If it's under 1.25%, that just tells me that this vehicle leases well. And there could be other trucks that have the same MSRP of $58,195 a month that might have a monthly lease payment of $900 a month. And in that scenario, that's not as good of a lease as this particular truck, right? You can compare a Toyota Highlander a lease to a similarly equipped Honda Pilot lease, and one might lease better than the other. So the moral of the story is that two $50,000 cars do not necessarily lease exactly the same. They could have different money factors, different residual values. There could be offering different incentives and rebates, a different selling price. There's a lot of inputs that go into a lease that can make one $50,000 car a more attractive lease option than another $50,000 car. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the down payment on a particular lease. Now, as you can see here, this lease requires $5,379 due at signing. And ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to put $5,379 down on your lease. In fact, I really recommend that you try to put $0 down on a lease. And what you do is you essentially just roll in this $5,379 and you divide it by 36, and that's why I add it to that $479 number. So when I take that 5,379 and divide it by 36, it's going to add $149.41 to this $479 a month payment, and that would be essentially your $0 down lease payment. So I think there's a big misconception out there that when the manufacturers state $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 down, that you have to do that. And ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to do that. You need to negotiate that out and either just roll that down payment into your payments, or just have the dealership take that, down payment off and subtract it from the selling price of the vehicle. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is lease mileage. So a lot of people said that 10,000 miles a year is just not enough. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can actually negotiate a 12,000 mile a year lease, or you can negotiate a 15,000 mile a year lease. That's pretty much easily done with whatever car that you need to lease. And my recommendation, if you follow me, is always to negotiate that 12,000 or 15,000 mile a year lease up front rather than paying the excess mileage penalty. Because as you can see here, the mileage charge is 25 cents a mile over 30,000 miles. And it's usually cheaper to just pay for excess mileage up front. So if you did a 12,000 mile a year lease, that would be 36,000 miles. If you did a 15,000 mile a year lease, this would be 45,000 miles. And you'd actually be able to buy that additional 15,000 miles or 6,000 miles at a much cheaper rate than paying this 25 cents a mile in overage charges. Now, the last thing I want to cover in this video is lease buyouts, because a lot of people think that leasing is just like renting, and it is like renting if your lease doesn't have a lease buyout option. So Teslas, for example, don't have a lease buyout option. You can lease the car for 36 months, but you have to turn it back into the dealer. But most leases have a lease buyout option, and that gives you a lot of different options towards the end of your lease term, and it allows you to really realize positive equity if there is any at the end of the lease term. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So as an example, let's just say that I leased this 2023 GMC Sierra 1500 today, right? As you can see here, usually in the fine print, they have what the buyout amount is going to be, like the residual value of the lease, but they don't have it here. It's not written here, but let's just, as an example, say, let's just use a round number. Let's just say that the residual value on this particular truck is $30,000. Now that means that at the end of my lease term, if I drive it for 3 years and 10,000 miles a year, I have the option to buy this truck for $30,000. But not only can you buy that car for $30,000, you also reserve the right to sell that car if there is any positive equity. So as an example, let's say I'm at the end of my lease term and I can buy this truck for $30,000, but I know that its value is $36,000, $37,000, $38,000. Well, what I could do then is I could buy this truck for $30,000. I could turn around and sell it for $37,000 or $38,000 because manufacturers get residual values wrong all the time, and a lot of people, end up with positive equity. So you can either buy the car and sell it. You can buy the car, drive it around for maybe another year or two, and then sell it. Another thing you can do is if your lease allows for third-party buyouts, I could take this truck and never even actually purchase it myself. I can actually take it towards the end of the lease and shop it around to place like maybe Carvana or maybe Driveway.com or any local Ford dealer, GMC dealer, Honda dealer, Toyota dealer, and actually get offers for this car from those dealerships and pretty much sell it to the highest bidder. So if the local Ford dealership's offering me $36,000 for this truck, but the local Toyota dealership is offering me $37,000 or $38,000, well, I can sell this truck to the local Toyota dealer for $38,000 and actually get a $8,000, cashier's check essentially. And I've done that in the past. And the beauty of doing this is that you never actually have to buy the car and pay taxes on the sales price before your lease ends. You just sell it and you realize that equity. Now, if your lease doesn't allow for third-party buyouts, then you have to shop your car around to local GMC dealers and sell it to the highest bidder, assuming that your truck does have positive equity. Now, if the residual value on this truck is $30,000 and the open market value is $25,000 or $24,000 and these trucks are selling for $22,000, well then in that case it's probably best to just turn the truck back in, because if you were to buy it at $30,000, you're pretty much starting out with $8,000 worth of negative equity, and that really doesn't make any financial sense. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beauty of leasing. You have the option to buy the lease at the end of your lease term if it makes financial sense, and that's why it's not purely just renting a car where you have to turn it back in and you're just spending, $15,000, $20,000 over a 3-year term, and you're just out that money. If you have positive equity, you can actually recoup some of that money and use it towards a down payment, or you can pocket it, put it in your checking account. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video was helpful in you understanding car leases better. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below and I will do my best to get back to you. But with that, I'm gonna call it a video. Financial knowledge is power. Please like and follow for more.